really try and stick to my word, but that's the thing that I break more than anything with myself, which stops me from being like God, is because I'm not keeping my word. I'm setting the bar too high for myself.
For years, Terrence Howard has argued that Hollywood runs on rules the public never sees. After his own turbulent battles with the industry following his exit from Iron Man, Howard has repeatedly claimed that careers often depend less on talent than on knowing when to stay quiet. Now, he's putting Ellen DeGeneres in that conversation. Mentioning her alongside other powerful entertainment figures, Howard argues that Hollywood has a habit of protecting influential people until the cost of defending them becomes greater than the cost of abandoning them. And if there was one celebrity whose astonishing rise and even more astonishing fall seemed to prove that point, it was her. Terrence Howard may have finally revealed why no celebrity would defend Ellen DeGeneres. This is one crazy roller coaster ride, so stay with us till the end, because it gets crazier every passing second. America's nicest person built an untouchable empire. For nearly 2 decades, Ellen DeGeneres seemed untouchable. She had built one of the most carefully crafted public images in entertainment history. That is why Terrence Howard's recent comments about Hollywood protecting powerful figures resonate with so many people. Looking back at Ellen's extraordinary rise, it becomes easier to understand why so few people were willing to challenge someone whose entire career had become synonymous with kindness. That reputation did not come easily. In April of 1997, Ellen made television history when both she and her sitcom character publicly came out as gay. The episode of Ellen, titled The Puppy Episode, attracted more than 40 million viewers and became one of the most watched sitcom episodes of the decade. It was also a tremendous personal and professional gamble. Many advertisers pulled away. Some affiliates refused to air the episode, and conservative groups launched boycotts. Although Ellen won an Emmy Award for the episode's writing, her sitcom was canceled the following year. Overnight, one of television's brightest stars became an example of how quickly Hollywood could turn on someone. For several years, her career struggled to regain momentum. She hosted another sitcom that lasted only 1 season and found acting opportunities becoming increasingly scarce. Then came an unexpected lifeline from Pixar Animation Studios. Director Andrew Stanton believed Ellen's energetic, conversational style was perfect for a forgetful blue tang fish named Dory in Finding Nemo. Released in May of 2003, the film became a worldwide phenomenon, earning more than $900 million at the global box office and winning the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Only a few months later, that renewed goodwill turned into something even bigger. On September 8, 2003, The Ellen DeGeneres Show premiered with Jennifer Aniston as its first guest. The timing could hardly have been better. Audiences were looking for uplifting daytime television, and Ellen delivered exactly that. The show mixed celebrity interviews with dancing, surprise giveaways, heartfelt reunions, practical jokes, and ordinary people receiving extraordinary acts of generosity. Ratings climbed steadily. Dozens of daytime Emmy Awards followed, and before long, Ellen was no longer simply a comedian or actress. She had become one of the most influential personalities on American television. At the center of that success was a message so simple it became inseparable from her identity: be kind. Those 2 words appeared on merchandise, social media, charitable campaigns, and eventually in millions of homes around the world. Ellen handed families new cars, paid off student loans, surprised struggling teachers with classroom funding, and highlighted countless charitable organizations that otherwise might never have received national attention. In 2016, President Barack Obama awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, praising not only her entertainment career, but also the courage she had shown by coming out publicly at a time when doing so carried enormous professional risks. It seemed like the ultimate confirmation that Ellen had become America's nicest person. With that image came extraordinary influence. Every major celebrity wanted a seat on Ellen's famous white couch. Presidents, Olympic champions, movie stars, musicians, entrepreneurs, and internet sensations all appeared on the show. A single interview could introduce a new actor to millions of viewers, or transform an unknown viral performer into a household name overnight. Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Adele, Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, George Clooney, Tom Hanks, and countless others all stopped by. Young singer Grayson Chance went from posting a YouTube performance in Oklahoma to signing with Ellen's own record label after she featured him on the show. For aspiring entertainers, an invitation from Ellen often felt like a career milestone. Behind the scenes, Ellen's influence stretched even further. Production companies sought her endorsement, publishers lined up for book deals, and advertisers eagerly associated themselves with the Be Kind brand. Forbes regularly listed her among the world's highest-paid entertainers, with annual earnings reaching tens of millions of dollars. Her social media following grew into the hundreds of millions across multiple platforms, while her daytime audience remained one of the largest in television. By the late 2010s, Ellen, the persona, had become a multimedia empire. Yet even at the height of that success, small cracks were beginning to appear beneath the polished surface. The cracks everyone ignored. For years, the warning signs were there, but they never seemed powerful enough to break Ellen DeGeneres' carefully constructed image. Yet, when investigators and former employees finally began speaking publicly in 2020, those forgotten moments resurfaced almost overnight. Some of the earliest concerns came from people audiences never saw: the writers. Years before Ellen's workplace became front-page news, several former writers had quietly described an atmosphere where pitching ideas could feel intimidating rather than collaborative. One former writer later recalled that if a joke failed to land with Ellen, she could fix the room with a look that made people feel as though they had stabbed her puppy. Others described an inner circle that employees desperately wanted to remain part of because falling out of favor could mean becoming isolated. Then there was one interview that, in hindsight, took on a far darker meaning. In September of 2008, Mariah Carey appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show amid growing speculation that she was expecting a child. Carey repeatedly tried to avoid confirming the rumors, but Ellen continued pressing the issue, eventually encouraging her to drink champagne on camera. Why? Well, to prove that she was not pregnant. Carey reluctantly raised the glass without actually drinking. Just weeks later, she suffered a miscarriage. Years afterward, Carey admitted she had been deeply uncomfortable during the interview, explaining that she had not been ready to discuss such a personal matter publicly. Other celebrity interviews began receiving similar scrutiny. Taylor Swift had become a frequent guest on Ellen's show, but viewers eventually noticed a recurring pattern. Ellen often joked about Swift's dating life, showing photographs of male celebrities and asking her to identify former boyfriends. During one appearance, Swift became visibly uncomfortable, pleading, "Please stop." She later admitted that interviews focused on her relationships regularly left her anxious because every public interaction seemed to generate new headlines about her personal life. At the time, many viewers laughed along with the audience. Years later, critics argued the segment illustrated how easily entertainment could cross into humiliation. Perhaps the most famous crack in Ellen's image arrived completely unexpectedly in November of 2019. Actress Dakota Johnson visited the show to promote her latest film when Ellen jokingly accused her of failing to invite her to a birthday party. Johnson calmly smiled before delivering a response that immediately went viral. "Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen." She reminded the host that she had, in fact, been invited and that Ellen had chosen not to attend. Within hours, viewers began calling it one of the rare occasions someone had publicly challenged Ellen on her own stage. At the time, it seemed like an amusing exchange. In hindsight, many saw it as the moment when Ellen's carefully controlled narrative briefly slipped away. Comedian Hassan Minhaj experienced something different, but equally memorable. During his appearance, Ellen repeatedly mispronounced his surname despite his polite attempts to correct her. Rather than accepting the correction, she continued insisting on her own pronunciation. By itself, the incident was hardly a scandal. Yet critics later pointed to it as another example of Ellen projecting confidence while appearing dismissive of someone else's perspective. Then came one of the most surprising voices of all. Grayson Chance had been just 12 years old when his piano performance of Lady Gaga's Paparazzi went viral on YouTube. Ellen invited him onto her show, introduced him to millions of viewers, and even launched her own record label, 1111, with Chance as its first artist. It looked like the ultimate Hollywood success story. But in September of 2022, Chance told Rolling Stone that his experience had been far different behind the scenes. He alleged that Ellen became controlling over his career, criticized members of his management team, and gradually disappeared from his life after his commercial momentum slowed. Individually, none of these moments ended Ellen's career. A tense writer's room could be explained away as the pressure of producing a daily show. Mariah Carey could be dismissed as an awkward interview. Taylor Swift's discomfort might be written off as harmless teasing. Dakota Johnson's correction became an internet meme, while Hassan Minhaj's exchange faded within days, and Grayson Chance's story emerged years after his initial rise to fame. Standing alone, each incident seemed too small to seriously threaten one of the most successful personalities in daytime television. Together, however, they painted a far more complicated portrait. The smiling host who ended every episode with "Be kind" increasingly appeared, at least to some critics and former associates, to be capable of very different behavior once the cameras stopped rolling. Still, almost nobody with real influence publicly challenged that contradiction, while Ellen remained one of Hollywood's most powerful figures. She was winning Emmy Awards, attracting the biggest celebrities in the world, and generating enormous profits for networks and advertisers. But then, it all fell apart. The year the whole story exploded. By the summer of 2020, the carefully polished image Ellen DeGeneres had spent nearly 2 decades building was about to collide with something far more difficult to manage than bad press. It all started with a single social media post that struck a nerve across Hollywood. On March 20th, 2020, comedian Kevin T. Porter wrote on X, then known as Twitter, "Right now, we all need a little kindness. You know, like Ellen DeGeneres always talks about. She's also notoriously one of the meanest people alive." He challenged users to share stories they had heard about Ellen, promising to donate money to the Los Angeles Food Bank for every response. Within hours, thousands of replies flooded in. Just a few months later, BuzzFeed News published the first of several investigations based on interviews with current and former staff members from The Ellen DeGeneres Show. Their accounts were remarkably consistent, despite coming from people in different departments and different periods of the show's history. Employees described an environment where fear often replaced collaboration, where speaking up could damage careers, and where many felt intimidated rather than inspired by a program whose public message revolved around kindness. Suddenly, the stories that had circulated quietly for years were public. They had names, dates, first-hand testimony. The first BuzzFeed investigation focused on allegations of bullying, fear, and a toxic workplace culture. Former employees claimed they had experienced retaliation after raising concerns, while others alleged they had been dismissed after taking medical leave or bereavement leave. Several black employees described incidents of racism and said complaints were either ignored or inadequately addressed. One employee recalled being told, "Be grateful you have this job," after attempting to report inappropriate behavior. Another described living in constant anxiety about making even minor mistakes. Later, BuzzFeed reports detailed allegations of misconduct involving senior members of the show's production team. Executive producer Ed Glavin faced accusations of inappropriate touching and creating a hostile work environment, while co-executive producer Kevin Lehman and head writer Jonathan Norman were also accused of misconduct ranging from inappropriate comments to inappropriate behavior. All three denied many of the allegations against them, but the cumulative effect was devastating. Warner Media, the company behind the show, moved quickly. It launched an internal investigation conducted by an outside firm, interviewing dozens of current and former employees. The full findings were never released publicly, but the investigation did result in significant changes. In August of 2020, executive producers Ed Glavin, Kevin Lehman, and Jonathan Norman departed the show. Warner Brothers Television announced new workplace policies and additional human resources measures aimed at improving the culture behind the scenes. Then, on September 21, 2020, Ellen opened the 18th season of her show not with dancing or giveaways, but with an apology. Looking directly into the camera, she acknowledged the allegations and accepted responsibility as the face of the program. "I learned that things happened here that never should have happened," she told viewers, adding that she was committed to making changes. It was one of the most serious monologues of her career. However, by this stage, the damage was becoming increasingly difficult to reverse. Nielsen ratings showed a sharp decline in viewership during the following season, with millions of regular viewers disappearing compared with previous years. Some advertisers quietly distanced themselves. Public discussion centered more and more on the controversies. Every new guest appearance and every promotional campaign was now filtered through the question of whether audiences still believed the woman whose signature phrase had always been, "Be tinned." For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Ellen's greatest asset, her public image, had become her greatest liability. In May of 2021, Ellen announced that the 19th season would be the show's last. She insisted the decision had been planned and said she needed a new creative challenge after almost 20 years on daytime television. Perhaps the most revealing part of the entire saga was not the allegations themselves, but the reaction from Hollywood. For nearly 2 decades, Ellen's couch had become a rite of passage for actors, musicians, athletes, politicians, and internet stars. Countless celebrities had praised her generosity, laughed with her audience, and benefited from the enormous exposure her platform provided. Yet, when her reputation came under sustained attack, only a relatively small group, including Kevin Hart, Katy Perry, Ashton Kutcher, Diane Keaton, and, most consistently, Portia de Rossi, publicly defended her. Many of the biggest names who had spent years celebrating Ellen simply said nothing at all, as Terrence Howard noted. When Hollywood suddenly went quiet, Terrence Howard has argued that the entertainment industry has a habit of protecting influential people until doing so becomes more dangerous than walking away. His own career helps explain why he sees Hollywood through that lens. After earning Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations for Hustle and Flow, starring in Crash, and becoming the original James Rhodes in Marvel's Iron Man, Howard experienced very public disputes with studios and executives. He has repeatedly claimed he was pushed aside after refusing to accept certain business decisions, and over the years he has spoken openly about what he views as an entertainment industry built on influence, personal alliances, and unspoken rules. Few would argue that he has not spent decades inside Hollywood's highest circles. So when he suggests powerful figures often remain protected until public opinion shifts, he is speaking from years of first-hand experience navigating that world. The response to Ellen's controversy seemed to illustrate exactly that dynamic. There were celebrities who stood by her. Kevin Hart publicly defended Ellen's character and praised her support during his own Oscars controversy. Katy Perry wrote that she had only ever experienced kindness and thoughtfulness from Ellen. Ashton Kutcher said he had never encountered anything but respect while working with her, and Portia de Rossi, Ellen's wife, remained her strongest public supporter, dismissing many of the claims as misinformation. Yet considering the extraordinary number of A-list actors, musicians, athletes, politicians, and entertainers who had benefited from Ellen's platform over almost 20 years, the list of vocal defenders was surprisingly short. Many of the industry's biggest names simply chose not to comment. Publicly defending someone accused of fostering a toxic workplace had simply become too professionally risky. In Hollywood, reputations can shift with astonishing speed, and few people are eager to attach themselves to a controversy that could damage their own careers. As public opinion shifted, viewers also began revisiting moments that once seemed completely ordinary. Old interviews, celebrity encounters, and backstage anecdotes were suddenly examined through an entirely different lens. One set of clips that repeatedly resurfaced involved Sean "Diddy" Combs. Over the years, Diddy had appeared on Ellen's show several times. He even joked with her about his famous parties and their friendship. After his legal troubles dominated headlines in 2024, those interviews spread rapidly across social media. Viewers replayed every exchange, searching for clues they believed they had missed. There was no evidence, of course. Nevertheless, those clips became part of the broader reassessment of Ellen's legacy. That broader shift is remarkably close to the point Howard has been making. Rather than focusing on one individual, he argues that destructive behavior often develops inside systems that reward silence, ambition, and loyalty over accountability. In one interview, Howard suggested that people are shaped by the environments around them and that abusive patterns are frequently passed from one generation to the next, rather than appearing in isolation. He was not excusing misconduct. Instead, he was asking how industries repeatedly produce the same kinds of scandals, despite promising reform after each one. That perspective does not remove responsibility from Ellen herself. As the face of the Ellen DeGeneres show, she ultimately accepted responsibility. She acknowledged that things had happened which never should have happened, and few would dispute that leaders bear responsibility for the environments they create. At the same time, Ellen's rise also demonstrated how effectively Hollywood can transform a performer into a carefully managed brand. Executives, advertisers, agents, publicists, television networks, and even fellow celebrities all benefited from maintaining the image of America's nicest person. As long as the ratings remained high and the awards continued piling up, there was little incentive for anyone to question the narrative. That may be the greatest irony of Ellen DeGeneres' story. The woman who ended every episode urging audiences to be kind ultimately became the public face of one of television's most significant workplace scandals. Does that contradiction reflect one person's failures or something much larger? We'll let you form your opinion on the matter. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.